What's up everyone, back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing yet another beer from the new Trail Brewing Company, and they're out of Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and this is their Sticky. So they're calling this one an Imperial Milk Porter that is brewed with coffee, maple syrup, cinnamon, and vanilla. Comes in at 9.3% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed in time of review. This can is approximately 2.5 months old. Now I want to give a huge thanks shout out once again to a very good friend of mine and viewer of the channel, Justin, for this beer. So big thanks to him. In the description box, I'll post a link to the beer haul video I did that contains all the goodies that Justin gave to me. And he gave me an entire case of Pennsylvania beers, 11 of which were New Trail. And this is the 11th and a final beer I'm reviewing from them. So I will say this, I got a great crash course in the New Trail beers. And while everybody seems to really enjoy their hop forward beers, which I did as well, the fact that Justin gave me a Pilsner, a West Coast IPA, so not just a hazy, a couple pumpkin beers, a barrel-aged Imperial Coffee Stout, a barrel-aged barley wine, which was one of my favorite beers, period, this year. It was a collaboration with Trogs. And this beer, I think that's really cool. I kind of get to see them outside of their comfort zone of hazies, and I will say New Trail makes some really delicious beer. So this one's interesting because it's not an Imperial Milk Stout. It's an Imperial Milk Porter, which you don't really see, so obviously lactose in here. And then coffee, maple syrup, cinnamon, and vanilla. Are they going for like a French toast kind of Imperial Milk Porter? A breakfast Imperial Milk Porter? I'm just assuming this is going to be a little bit thinner based on the fact that they're calling it a porter as opposed to a stout, maybe not as roasty. But I don't know. Coffee, maple syrup, vanilla, cinnamon, like sign me up. Let's get a pour here. It doesn't look thin. So I don't know, what the reason is behind them calling a porter to a stout. And a lot of people don't even know the differences between porter and stouts nowadays. You can read up on them, but like it's still a debate to this day. Like some people argue different reasonings, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's like a general consensus on what the difference is. I've always found like porters to stout porters, a little bit less viscous and a little bit less roasty from the malt character. And that's just my personal take on it. Anyway, that head just gone. So could be any of the adjuncts in there, whatever. But yeah, this has this really deep, dark, almost brown syrupy look to it. On camera, it's going to look pitch black, most likely. But when I hold it up to the light, it's not pitch black. It's a little bit of like a ruby red, darker brown tinge here. But it just kind of looks, to some degree, honestly, looks like kind of like a cold brew coffee in the glass. That's what it looks like to me. Cold brew coffee. Had about a, what was it, a half finger of like a off brown, lightly brown colored head, but again, nothing now. It's gone. Carbonation looks pretty decent. Let's get a nose. There's some alcohol legs too as I swirled up at 9.3. Let's get a nose. Wow. That's crazy. Kind of like a chocolate-covered espresso bean, like dipped in maple syrup. That's kind of what I'm getting right off the nose. There's a nice roasted kind of malt quality. Again, this is a porter, but it has like the roasty stout kind of vibes. But the coffee and the maple syrup are there for sure. But now as I went back, yeah, cinnamon and vanilla. All right, now it's starting to give me like authentic French toast vibes because of the cinnamon and vanilla. This to me, I think, I don't know what they're exactly going for. If they were going for something that was like specifically a French toast beer or a breakfast beer, you think they would just call this like Imperial, breakfast porter or Imperial French toast porter or something, right? Doesn't seem to be the case. They call it sticky. So, I feel like maple syrup, is playing a role and that's what they want from this. And it is. But this is giving me vibes of the French toast bastard from Founders. But if the actual characteristics in this beer and the ingredients were not extracts and actual authentic ingredients. Dude, it smells, every time I go back, it smells like there's a piece of French toast in front of me. It has butter, it has maple syrup, someone put a little bit of cinnamon sprinkle on top, and then for some reason somebody took a little like cocoa powder and spread it on top, and then I took a bite of that and now I'm sipping my coffee. That's exactly what I'm getting here. It's sweet, it's rich, it's decadent, but it's not over the top. But I'll be lying to you if I would say like the base is like coming to the forefront. A little bit of that roasted kind of malt character, but for the most part, it's the coffee, it's the maple syrup, it's cinnamon, it's vanilla, and you get them all together. Every time I go back now, I'm just getting maple syrup, cinnamon, and vanilla. The coffee's starting to die out a little bit, the roasted malt kind of dying out. It's just the adjuncts. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Depends. If the adjuncts, again, taste authentic, I'm going to love it. If they don't, they come off artificial or natural or extracty. Probably not going to love it, especially if the base beer doesn't hold up. I guess we'll see. Anyway, let's get into it. Cheers, everybody. Thanks again, Justin. It's interesting. Wow. Kind of took my palate for a ride. Like, as you see, I'm like looking around. I'm like, because I'm trying to figure out what I'm tasting, right? But it hit me in stages. So the complexity kind of through the roof based on the stages in which my palate detected the different flavors. One more sip here. I think this is like higher side of medium, lower side of full. I'd say more higher side of medium than anything. It's a bit thin at 9.3%, but they're calling it a porter, so I'm all right with it. I think if you're calling this a porter, then I'd be like, all right, Imperial Milk Porter, sure. The mouthfeel, more carbonation than I anticipated. This is like almost like moderate carbonation. It's pretty smooth on the palate. There is a little bit of like a creaminess, but not too big. It's smooth, but a little more carbonation than I'd like. Based on the head and everything, I was like, oh, carbonation maybe died out a bit. No. Not over the top, but I'd like to see the mouthfeel be a little bit more soft, creamy, smooth, just all those, right? So mouthfeel, a little bit of a bummer. The actual taste, though, I'm still struggling. Now I'm getting like dark fruit. This is a crazy fucking beer. All right, so front of the palate, roasted malt. It's not overly roasted, mildly roasted malt. I'm also right at the tip of the tongue, right after that, I'm getting freshly brewed coffee, like a roasted coffee, kind of like medium roasted coffee. It's right at the tip of the tongue. So it's like you took a sip of coffee first. Then you took, instead of like taking a bite of like a piece of French toast with maple syrup on it, you actually took a sip of your coffee, then took the bite of French toast, because that's like kind of the order it's hitting me in. And the cinnamon is definitely dominating right after that. And then I'm getting dark fruit, which is kind of different. A little bit of chocolate, cocoa powder. But the dark fruit, it's like figgy datey. Then middle of the palate, maple syrup is really big in the middle of the palate. And that's combining with the vanilla and the cinnamon to give you French toast vibes. This is, I'll be honest with you, this is a disjointed beer to some degree because I'm getting everything in stages. They're not necessarily blending together beautifully, but I like the individual stages of the beer. Like I like that roasty coffee at the forefront. Then you get hit with the dark fruits and like the cocoa powder. Then you get the maple syrup, the cinnamon, the vanilla. But they don't blend enough for me to love this beer. I do like it though. On the finish, I will say this too. I'm glad that this isn't overly sweet. There's a nice decadent, rich, kind of sweeter vibe to it, but it's not cloying like a lot of these can be. It has a nice semi-dry finish, and there's this mild like this mild like again the cocoa powder kind of like with the cinnamons giving me the dryness, but also like a mild bitterness. So I love that this is, you know, somewhat of an imperial, we'll call this an imperial breakfast milk porter, more so than anything else. And I think it works well. I was thinking this is like a pastry porter, but it really isn't that sweet, even though you got 4 different adjuncts in here, plus lactose, like it's not that sweet. 9.3%, there's a nice firm warming in my chest, nothing on the palate. This drinks extremely well for 9.3. It's not overly boozy, but I don't also think that it like, hides it extremely well. If I was doing this blind, I'd guess at least 8, 8.5, somewhere in there. I could totally see 9.3. I wouldn't be as surprised. But this is pretty good. I think the biggest issue I have with this is the mouthfeel. I think I want a little bit more creamy, a little bit smoother, a little bit softer. And I think that disjointed kind of nature. I always say, shout out to a good friend of mine and fellow beer tour, Paul over at PA Brew News, that I already shout him out. This review I may have already. You tend to forget sometimes when you're drinking 9.3% Imperial Milk Porters. But he always says, I love the word cohesive, and I do. It's a great word. This is not cohesive. This is disjointed. This is not, it's not cohesive in the least. And I think if it was cohesive, it'd be a little bit better than what I'm enjoying it right now. Because I feel like all those flavors should blend together, but they're really not in the taste. Now again, when you pouring the rest in, a little bit more intense cinnamon, maple syrup, vanilla kind of vibe. when you review a beer like this, instead of just drinking it on your own, you kind of have a tendency to look for faults, look for things that bother you, maybe certain characteristics that you love. For me, this is a damn good Imperial Milk Porter with those 4 adjuncts. It could be better for me. Again, mouthfeel a little lacking, and I think it needs to be a little bit more cohesive, but I still enjoy this one. So Sticky from New Trail. I have no issues whatsoever in giving this beer a high 4 out of 5. I'll go 4.05 out of 5. To get into that like 4.25 range, one of the mouthfeel needed to be better, or the actual taste needed to be more blended together, more cohesive, just work together with one another, because I feel like, again, it's disjointed. It hits my palate in stages. But I do enjoy it. 4.05 out of 5. Price point availability, I have no idea. So Justin or anybody else, if you pick this one up, what do you pay for a can? What do you pay for a 4-pack? I would hope something like this isn't more than like $5, $6 a can. I think, your $20 a 4-pack for 9.3% with those different adjuncts, yeah, $5, $6 I think would work fine. And availability, wherever you see New Trail, I know they get distro in PA and I think some neighboring states. But outside of that, we don't see them here in the Western New York area. But if you see their stuff and you're outside of PA, let me know. I would love to hear from you. So again, if you have this one, post in the comment section. Appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. A thanks to Justin once again for all the New Trail beers. I think I only have 1 beer left from that entire haul, which is crazy that I've kind of run through his beers in the last couple months. But I mean, he gave me an entire case of beer. I think there's 20 different beers and I'm almost through all of them. Pretty awesome, and I can't thank you enough, Justin, for all of these beers. Done with the New Trail stuff. Hopefully you get to try some more of their stuff down the line, because they make good beers. This is pretty good, just not amazing. Anyway, till the next one. Cheers.